Every summer, the NFL machine spins up the same intoxicating storyline. Everyone is 0-0, and every single roster is a contender. But the balance sheets tell a much harsher story. Before a single snap is taken in 2026, 12 franchises are already mathematically and structurally locked out of the postseason. If you're managing fantasy capital or placing futures bets, the crucial question isn't whether these teams will lose games. It's figuring out exactly how and why they are designed to fail. We need to separate the franchises undergoing a necessary, calculated strategic demolition from the ones trapped in perpetual systemic purgatory. To figure out which is which, we run their specific decisions through this viability test, tracking front office inputs down to the roster. If guaranteed to miss the playoffs, we have to isolate if they are actually rebuilding or just spinning their wheels. Misinterpreting a team's true trajectory is how you waste high draft capital on a doomed offense, burn money on bad win total bets, and frankly, ruin your Sundays watching terrible football. An objective audit of these 12 rosters clears the fog of off-season hype, protecting your resources and keeping your expectations grounded in reality. We begin with the front offices that looked at their rosters, recognized a dead end, and chose to detonate their salary caps. The Dolphins finally cleaned house. To escape their own ceiling, the new management cut ties with Tua Tagovailoa, triggering a massive financial penalty to get him off the roster. Arizona took the exact same medicine, deciding it was better to release Kyler Murray and swallow the cap penalty immediately rather than drag out a failing era. This chart maps out the resulting dead cap hits across the league, and you can see Miami and Arizona towering over everyone else. Miami is eating a record $99.2 million, while the Cardinals are choking down $54.7 million. When you subtract that much money from your operating budget, the math simply doesn't allow you to field a functional defense or a deep receiving core. Miami traded Jalen Waddle and is essentially left with Devon Achane running into brick walls with zero defensive support. Compare that hard reset to Atlanta. Instead of committing to their young talent, the Falcons are paying top dollar to bring in the very quarterback Miami just paid nearly $100 million to get rid of, staging a bizarre competition with Michael Penix. This creates a completely fractured offensive identity. By refusing to pick a lane, Atlanta is wasting the absolute prime years of elite playmakers like Bijan Robinson, Drake London, and Kyle Pitts. All three of these teams will fail in 2026, but Miami and Arizona are taking on calculated, necessary pain to clean their ledgers. Atlanta is applying a confusing half measure that actively caps their own ceiling. Then you have the franchises trying to cover up deep structural holes with flashy, big-name off-season acquisitions. Bringing in an established, championship pedigree coach usually adds immediate competence to a building, instantly raising a team's floor by 2 or 3 wins purely on discipline. The Giants executed this playbook by hiring John Harbaugh, bringing his specific brand of culture and a handful of trusted veteran reinforcements over from Baltimore. The Steelers also made a massive sideline shift, finally parting ways with Mike Tomlin after 19 incredibly stable but ultimately stalled years. But instead of finding a fresh innovator, Pittsburgh hired Mike McCarthy, a veteran known exactly for keeping teams floating comfortably in the middle of the pack. The fatal flaw in both these cities is the reliance on aging, physically regressing talent under center.
Pittsburgh is crossing its fingers with a 42-year-old Aaron Rodgers, ensuring they'll waste another prime year of elite defensive edge rushing. Tennessee is applying its own band-aids. Despite needing to see exactly what they have in second-year quarterback Cam Ward, the front office completely failed to supply him with serious receiving help. They signed Wan'Dale Robinson to fill the gap. To be clear, Robinson is a safe player, but he isn't going to remind anyone of Jerry Rice. It's a marginal upgrade that won't move the needle in a modern shootout. These stopgap additions guarantee these franchises will scrape together maybe 6 or 7 wins. They'll survive in the mushy middle of the standings, completely missing out on top draft picks and delaying the massive organizational teardowns they desperately need. Our final category features the franchises drowning in absolute structural dysfunction, where high effort consistently yields zero offensive continuity. Looking at this plot of organizational effort versus actual on-field impact, the Browns and the Colts find themselves totally isolated down here in the high chaos, low output sector.
Cleveland is attempting to transition to a new offensive system under Todd Monken, but they are doing it with an inexperienced receiving core and a highly volatile quarterback room, currently relying on Shedeur Sanders. And hovering over all of that instability is the heavy shadow of Deshaun Watson and a contract that continues to paralyze the front office's ability to maneuver. Indianapolis has its own track record of chaos. After losing Daniel Jones to an Achilles tear last year, the Colts reached a level of desperation so deep they actually brought in a 44-year-old Phillip Rivers out of retirement. They've seemingly completely abandoned Anthony Richardson, moving on from their former highly touted first-round pick without a clear backup plan in place. The Colts are so devoid of modern offensive firepower, they'd probably dig up Johnny Unitas if the league office allowed it. Compare that endless scrambling to the Raiders. Las Vegas is executing a highly controlled rebuild, smartly signing Kirk Cousins to absorb the immediate hits while insulating their new first overall draft pick. For Cleveland and Indianapolis, whatever stops their defenses manage to produce will be completely squandered by unfixable offensive ineptitude. Their ceiling is firmly bolted to the basement. The reality is set in stone. All 12 of these franchises will be watching the playoffs from home. But how you, as a viewer or investor, handle their games should be wildly different. Let's use this decision matrix to categorize these teams into 3 distinct buckets for your resource allocation: invest for 2027, hold assets, and total divestment. In this top row, we have our invest for 27 targets, like the Raiders and Giants. You can confidently buy into their young core and stable coaching right now, absorbing the short-term losses because the long-term stability is clearly visible. Moving down, we hit the hold assets tier. Teams like the Cardinals and Dolphins are mathematically crippled by massive cap hits, making their 2026 product ugly, but it's a necessary financial purge. Keep your powder dry and wait for their books to clear. Finally, we reach the bottom row, total divestment. Avoid the Browns, Steelers, and Colts entirely. They are stuck in a relentless cycle of high friction and mediocrity, offering zero upside. Do not sink your fantasy draft capital, your betting funds, or emotional energy into franchises that refuse to fix their own structural decay. In the brutal business of the NFL, sometimes the smartest play you can make is recognizing a lost cause, cutting your losses, and walking away.